on a snowy day when I was 10 years old, I got the itch to go sledding. So my father took me to the hardware store. I picked out a sled, and I was in line with it. And he went over to look at hammers or something. And just to give you an idea of how I looked back then, here's how I looked. Just imagine that person, but all bundled up for winter. So this older guy walks by me and bumps into me. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, little girl." And I'm not paying attention, right? So I'm just confused. But my father just wheels on the guy, and he starts yelling at him. "He's a boy. How can you think that he's a girl?" And I really thought in that moment that I was going to watch my father beat this guy because he thought I might be a girl. So that was really scary. And it was one of 1,000 little moments that, told me that I had to push these feelings, that I was different, right? Had to push those feelings down. And it delayed my transition for another quarter century. At my lowest point, this is how I looked. So that fear that trans people feel, that fear of transitioning, it's rooted in reality. At time of recording, there is no federal law that protects trans and non-binary people from discrimination. So we're a vulnerable population. Trans folks are worried about getting and keeping a job. The rate of unemployment for trans people is 1/3 higher than the national rate. We are worried about being able to own a home or even keeping basic shelter over our heads. The rate of housing insecurity for trans folks is twice the national rate, and our home ownership rate is half of the national rate. And finally, we fear not just rejection, but we fear violence. In 2020, 37 trans people in the United States were murdered in hate crimes. The vast majority of them were Black trans women who have to try to survive at the intersection of transphobia and white supremacy, which makes them aggressively targeted by perpetrators of hate crimes. So what I do for a living is I'm a trainer for the Equitas Health Institute. You can see me doing my thing out in the field there. And among the many things organizations hire us to do, we're often hired because organizations want to do a better job serving the trans community. So I'll share these statistics with them, right? And they're often shocked, sometimes horrified, and they want to do better. They do. But sometimes I also get a vibe of, that's a shame. We should treat trans people better. But do we really have to change all these things about how we operate to cater to this small minority? What's in it for us? And today I want to talk about how creating a world where trans people have full citizenship, where we can use a bathroom without, being afraid of getting accosted or assaulted, where our names and our pronouns are respected. That's also a world where everyone will enjoy gender liberation. So when we're born, we're put into one of two boxes, the boy box or the girl box. And, we don't have a choice in that, right? We're babies, we're infants. But which box we're put in has a tremendous impact on the entire trajectory of our lives. It impacts how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to look, who we're supposed to love, what emotions are acceptable for us to express, and what emotions that we're expected to repress, right? And for trans folks, one of the big reasons why we face the bias and discrimination and prejudice that we do is we are living examples that not everybody fits in one of those two boxes. Not everybody is in the box that they should be in based on where they were put at birth, or both. But the boxes don't just negatively impact trans people. I think a lot about during the current global public health emergency, one of the things that's happened to women in the United States is that women are 4 times as likely as men to have lost their jobs or to have left the workforce during this global crisis. And the reason for that is that the gendered norm that it should be women who take the primary responsibility of caring for children, of teaching children. During this emergency, that norm has aggressively reasserted itself. What about men? Well, in the US, 6 million men in the US suffer from depression, but they are much less likely than the rest of the public to seek help for mental health concerns. Why? Because men are not supposed to ask for help because of the box. I tried to survive in that box. I did. But finally, in my mid-30s, I transitioned. And I transitioned because my fear of what would happen to me if I came out got eclipsed by my fear of future regret, of how it would feel if I never even went over and saw what it was like in the other box. So this is a picture of me from a few years ago. Oh, hey, thanks Instagram filters. That's a good one. So I transitioned, and it was the best decision of my life. It really was. The fog of what Julia Serrano once called gender sadness lifted from me. But I wasn't done learning or evolving or growing. One thing that I learned after years of transitioning and after a lot of therapy was that I didn't want to stay in one box permanently. This box was much better. The new box was much better. But I didn't necessarily want to stay in that box permanently all the time. So I started to explore a greater range of gender expression. As you can see in this picture, recently I've really jumped into that exploration. And I mention this simply because instead of, for example, my decision to transition, which, though it was a good decision, was made out of fear, my decision to expand the boundaries of my gender expression, I made that decision out of hope. That I now can think about the future in a hopeful way rather than just worrying about avoiding the worst possible outcome. So the fight for trans liberation is in many ways just essentially making sure the doors of those boxes are at least unlocked for people. And the way that that is connected to gender liberation generally is this. So many of us haven't even asked these questions. Trans and non-binary folks are kind of forced to confront these questions, but most people aren't. So some of you may be very, very comfortable in the box that you were originally put in. You may feel connected to it. It fits for you. That's great. That's your authenticity, and that's awesome. But I do want everyone to think about this, particularly if maybe you're just meh about the box you're in. Think about whether that box has kept you from living your most authentic life. Has it kept you from jobs or hobbies that you think don't fit with the box that you were put in? Has it kept you from looking the way that you want to look or associating with people the way you want to? If the answers to any of those questions end up yes, this is not just an effort, a struggle for trans folks. It's an effort that will benefit everyone. We can create this better world where you don't have to fear stepping outside the boundaries of the box that you were put in. We can create a world where trans folks have full citizenship, equal rights. We can live in dignity. We can live openly and not be afraid of that bringing harm to us. That world is the one that I hope that we can build together. Thank you.